Hey guys, Walls here, back with another breakdown of the tragedy of Romeo and Juliet. This here is Act 5. This is the conclusion of the play, and even though this is the final act, a lot of scholars believe that this act contains the true climax of the play. So we know that in the end, Romeo and Juliet die. But here we see kind of how it happens. Like the Shakespeare kind of shows us how maybe it didn't have to happen. He gives us little hints and things here that maybe things could have turned out differently. But inevitably, we have to ask this question at the beginning of the play. When Romeo was thinking about going to the party, he was like, I think I've got a bad feeling about this party. I think that if I go to this party, I'm going to set into motion the events that lead to my death. But then he says, you know what? Whoever's in control of my fate, do what you will. Let's go. So, whose fault is it? That's kind of the, I mean, there's lots of themes to this play. There are a lot of reasons why we could say that they ended up where they ended up. Who people who we could blame, but let's just see how this shakes out. So at the beginning of Act 5, oh yeah, get your make sure you got this thing handy, ready to check your answers or follow along and answer the questions. Let's go to the beginning of Act 5. You got Romeo, and then here's how he figures out what happened. So he didn't get this letter. We'll talk about that later. But Romeo's servant Balthazar enters, and Romeo's like, "Hey, how's it going? How's Juliet? She doing all right?" For nothing can be ill if she be well. Then Balthazar says, then she is well, and nothing can be ill. Her body sleeps in Capel's monument, and her immortal part with angels lives. I saw her laid low in her kindred's vault, and presently took post to tell it to you. Oh, pardon me for bringing these ill news, since you did leave it from my office, sir. Basically, he's saying, I hate to be the one to tell you, but you told me to tell you she is dead. So Romeo learns. This is not where we want to be here. Let's go back to slide 1. There we go. So, how does Romeo learn of Juliet's death? Balthazar tells him. There's the lines there. Now, after Romeo learns of Juliet's death, he immediately determines that he's going to kill himself. He's going to go lie down with her in the grave. So he goes to the apothecary. The apothecary, just think of the apothecary here as a pharmacist here, and he goes to the pharmacist and he says, "Hey man, give me some poison." And the apothecary says, "Such mortal drugs I have, but Mantua's law is death to any that utters them." Basically, I've got the poison you're talking about, but if I sell it to you, the law will have me put to death. And Romeo says, "Art thou so bare and full of wretchedness, and fearest to die? Famine is in thy cheeks, need and oppression starveth in thy eyes, contempt and beggary hangs upon thy back. The world is not thy friend, nor the world's law. The world affords no law to make thee rich. Then be not poor, but break it and take this." Now, this is some pretty heavy commentary here. Now, the basic answer to this question is, Romeo says, "Dude, you are broke. I can see you are nearly starving to death. You do not have any money. Take my money and buy yourself something nice." The apothecary says, "My poverty, but not my will consents." Romeo says, "I pay thy poverty and not thy will." Romeo is basically saying, "You're blameless in this. I'm not, you're not taking the money because you're evil or because you want people to die or you want to hurt people. You're taking the money because you need the money." The apothecary says, "Put this in any liquid thing that you will and drink it off, and if you had the strength of 20 men, it would dispatch you straight." So basically, this is some pretty serious poison. Romeo says, "There is thy gold, were poison to men's souls, doing more murder in this loathsome world than these poor compounds that thou mayest not sell. I sell thee poison, thou hast sold me none. Farewell, buy food and get thyself in flesh." So basically, he's saying, like, take this money. The money that I'm giving you is more deadly and dangerous to men than the poison you are selling me. I mean, again, Shakespeare was a storyteller, a playwright, a poet, and a lot of people, look at him to find philosophical ideas. Here, he's basically saying, like, I mean, this whole idea the world is not thy friend. He's saying, man, like, the world is holding you down. The world is keeping you poor and hungry. Like, why do you care about the world's laws when the world's laws keep you this way? Break the law, get rich, get yourself some food. Uh, Anyways, okay, moving on. How long We have to quarantine. This is interesting. So, and again, I hadn't read this play before, working with you guys on it for years and years and years, and I completely forgot about this. So, in scene two, why did the friar's letters not reach Romeo in time to warn him of the plan? Look at this. So, you got Friar John shows up, and what says Romeo? What you went and delivered Romeo this letter. What did he say? Or did he write a letter? Give me the letter. Friar John says, going to find a barefoot brother, another monk, another friar out, one of our order, to associate me here in the city visiting the sick. And finding him, the searchers of the town, suspecting that we both were in a house where the infectious pestilence did reign, sealed up the doors and would not let us forth, so that my speed to Mantua there was stayed. Who bare my letter then to Romeo? I could not send it. Here it is again. And he's saying down here, I couldn't find a messenger to go with me. So basically, Friar John and another friar were out visiting the sick, because that's their job. They're men of faith, and their job is to be with and help the sick. And then the searchers, basically the health officials, say, "Oh man, I think you guys were in a house with somebody who had the plague, who had the Black Death. We're going to have to quarantine you guys." And they lock them up in the house, and they weren't allowed to leave. So Romeo doesn't get the letter because Friar John was quarantined and couldn't leave the house. And then no one would take the letter for him because everyone was afraid they were going to get infected. And now, like, I this is crazy to me because looking back on it, the entire play, I don't, help me if I'm wrong, but I don't think anybody mentions this. So when he's talking about the pestilence here, he's talking about the Black Death. This was a plague that literally killed 1 out of every 3 people in medieval England. I mean, think about that. 1 out of every 3 people. So I think it's odd that, like, Shakespeare didn't mention any of this until now. Like, that's a pretty big deal. Okay. Anyways, so yeah, it's 2020, right? Everything old is new again. They couldn't get this letter out because they were quarantined. Okay. Now, well, let's go. Let's see here. The whole thing happens after this. So this is the apothecary scene. Romeo, apothecary. This is the quarantine scene right here. Friar Lawrence knows things are not going to go well. And here we go. So Paris shows up to the grave. And why does he go to the tomb of the Capulets in scene 3? He goes because he wants to put flowers on Juliet's grave. He says here, sweet flower with flowers, thy bridal bed I strew. Oh, woe, thy canopy is dust and stones, which with sweet water nightly I still do, or wanting that with tears distilled by moans. The obsequies that I for thee will keep nightly shall be to strew thy grave and weep. So basically, he's saying, I couldn't, put these flowers on your bridal bed, so instead I will put these flowers on your grave. Now, Romeo shows up, and this is further down. This is still Paris speaking. He's somebody's coming. He says, and here is Romeo's come to do some villainous shame to the dead bodies. I will apprehend him. So Paris thinks that Romeo has shown up to desecrate the graves of perhaps Tybalt and Juliet, because remember, Paris still thinks that Romeo and the Montagues are mortal enemies of the Capulets. Romeo, everyone knows, has been banished because he slew Tybalt. He killed him. So Paris here, I think, is right to assume that Romeo is up to no good. But Romeo tries to tell Paris, like, listen, dude, I'm a lover, not a fighter. I'm not here for you. And so Paris thinks he's there to disturb the grave, and Romeo tells him he doesn't want to kill him. So he says, I must indeed, and therefore came I hither. Good, gentle youth, tempt not a desperate man. Fly hence and leave me. Think upon these gone. Let them affright thee. I beseech thee, youth, put not another sin upon my head by urging me to fury. Basically, he's saying, don't make things any worse for me. I've sinned enough. Don't make me kill you like I killed Tybalt. Like, and don't make me, don't make me suffer more any than I'm suffering, by having to kill you. By heaven, I love thee better than myself. So he says, like, hey, listen, man, I came here armed against myself, not someone else. But inevitably, Romeo and Paris fight, and Romeo defeats Paris. He kills him. Okay. Now, the question here is, why are lines 94 through 96 considered foreshadowing? What is the meaning of these lines? So if you go down a little farther, 94th to 96, where are we? Here we go. So Romeo has entered the tomb. He is with Juliet. He is looking her over. He's opining. He's sad about her death. He's going on and on and on. And he says, "Beauty's ensign, yet is crimson in thy lips and in thy cheeks, and death's pale flag is not advanced there." So what he's saying here is basically you still look alive. Like he's, beauty's ensign yet is crimson in thy lips. Beauty's sign is still there. You still look beautiful. You still look alive. Death's pale flag is not advanced there. She still has the coloration and complexion of somebody who is alive. Now this foreshadows that she's not dead. So it makes you wonder, like, if he had just waited just a little bit, if he just, not fought Paris, if he just left, if I don't know. Anyways, all right, what's our next question here? Okay, let's go here. So here we go. Oh, well, I guess we should, this is the scene. This is where it happens here. The drugs are quick, and thus with a kiss I die. He kisses Juliet. He takes the drugs. He kisses Juliet, and he dies. Let's see here. Juliet wakes up, and there we go. She realizes what's happened. She realized what's happened here. Poison I see hath been his timeless end. O churl, drunk all, and left no friendly drop to help me after. I will kiss thy lips. Haply some poison yet doth hang on them to make me die with a restorative. Sorry about that. I have a doctor's appointment here in a minute. Okay. Let's see here. So she says, "What's here a cup?" She's saying like, "Oh, you drank this poison. You didn't save me any. Thy lips are warm." So she knows that like this has just happened, and she snatches Romeo's dagger. She kills herself right there, and it's over. So that's the end. The end that we all knew was coming. So according to lines 210 through 212, what happened to Romeo's mother? Here we go. Alas, so the prince calls over the father, and he says, "Montague, thou art early up to see thy son and heir now early down. Alas, my liege, my wife is dead tonight. Grief of my son's exile hath stopped her breath. What further woe conspires against mine age? Princess, look and thou shalt see." So basically, Montague is like, "Man, like my wife has died of grief. What she's sad for is the banishment of Romeo. So she's died of a broken heart for her son being banished, and now Montague's like, what possibly could be worse than this?" And Prince is like, "Well, look over there." So, and these lines from the prince kind of wraps things up here. Their course of love, the tidings of their death. And here he writes that he did buy a poison of a poor apothecary, and therewithal came to this vault to die and lie with Juliet. Where be these enemies? Capulet, Montague, see what a scourge is laid upon your hate, that heaven finds means to kill your joys with love. Basically saying, like, why are you enemies? Do you see what your hate has done? And he says, "And I, for winking at your discords too, have lost a brace of kinsmen. All are punished." So let's see. Let's get down here. So he says he's lost a brace of kinsmen. So the prince has lost people as well. So basically, when he says all are punished, he's saying like, because of this feud, all of us here have suffered, and for what? And again, here's this idea that everything contains its opposite. Look at the way this is phrased here. Heaven finds means to kill your joys with love. So he's basically saying that two people loved each other, but because of your hate, the heavens, fate, killed them to teach you guys a lesson, I guess. All right, let's go. All are punished. What decision did the two families make at the conclusion of the play? They conclude to end the feud. Now, this is key. Who are the characters that died in the play? You've got a total of 6 deaths. You've got Romeo and Juliet, obviously, Mercutio and Tybalt, Paris and Lady Montague. So Paris and Lady Montague were kind of peripheral characters, really, but and they kind of died, more or less because of the folly of the other characters. It wasn't really their fault. Now, this is arguable. What is the fatal flaw that leads Romeo and to Romeo and Juliet's deaths? Is it love? Did they love each other too much, too fast? Is it the hate of the families? Basically, why do you think, like, what brought them down? Like, what characteristics, what personality traits do you think brought them down? That'll be a multiple choice test on the or multiple choice question on the test. And what do you think is the main theme of the play? I'm not going to answer that question for you. There will be multiple choice options for you to pick one that you think fits. But you can go anything from you know obviously hate is bad, simple stuff like that. Don't move too quickly. Just what do you kind of think is the main idea of the play? All right, guys, that's Romeo and Juliet. We did it. Hope you guys enjoyed these breakdowns. Hope they helped. Make sure you've got all of your study guides completed. If you've already completed it, just use these guides or these breakdowns to check your answers. If not, make sure you submit those, and I will open up that the final test soon, and I'll let you know when that is open for you guys to take on formative. Hope you all are having a good week so far, and I'll talk to you guys again soon.